So, One Piece season 2 dropped 2 days ago, and the speed with which I ran to Netflix to watch it rivaled Luffy's whenever it catches a whiff of meat. I made it an entire day of me watching and rewatching my favorite parts of the episodes because I was having so much fun with it. I laughed, I cried, I screamed. I professed my undying love to Robin Swan in front of my television. It was such a goddamn blast and quite the upgrade from season 1 for me. And when I say upgrade, I'm not simply talking about the special effects and the fact that the crew was able to bring so many of the stunning vistas of the islands I've loved since I first saw the anime and read the manga. God, I cannot wait for the opening reveal shot of Water 7 in the live action. I think my spirit will just ascend whenever we get there. But as I was saying, whilst the special and visual effects were incredible this season, especially my beloved 2020 Chopper, I think that what hit me more, the reason why I found myself so obsessed with this season compared to season 1, was the fact that it was able to thread a careful balance of subtle hints and nods to keep we manga and anime fans well fed on what is coming, whilst at the same time providing further depth to the characters in a little ways that deviated from the original source material, but which still tied back to hints whilst giving all these characters depth in a way that those who are only watching the live action would still be able to understand and appreciate them. And yes, I will like to talk about it because it's incredible. Of course, before I get into all of that, I would like to say a big thank you to my lovely patrons and YouTube members whose support have been instrumental in helping me continue to make content, especially since I started doing this full time at the start of last year, which was the last time I was in paid employment. And a special shout out to Lena, Sherry, and Holly for their extra support. You get all the hearts and kisses too. Mwah. If you too would like to support me on Patreon or become a YouTube member to enjoy certain perks, even get a shout out, the link to do so is in the description bar. Now, I do think a great place for me to start would be in Logtown. Now, I have seen people on the internet be of two separate minds about how events played out with Matsu in his store with Zoro needing to replace his broken blades. There have been those who insist that the scene was rushed and others who felt it was just right. I happen to fall in the latter camp. Now, this might seem sacrilegious to anime fans, but remember, this is just my opinion, and opinions are like assholes after all. Everyone's got one. But as I was saying, whilst this might seem sacrilegious to the anime, I do prefer the way in which the scene was written in the live action. In the anime, Ippon Matsu, or Matsu for short, after Zoro's test of the curse of the blade versus his own will, gave Zoro the Sandai Kitetsu and also handed him his family heirloom Yubashiri with excitement that then spills into comedy for us viewers when his wife shows up afterwards. I compare that with the absolute awe, the sheer reverence that Matsu is able to convey in the live action. There's a gravitas to his voice. The moment builds and settles, the absence of music and sound makes his voice reverberate even more. We get to see in that brief moment how much this matters to Matsu, to learn that there are still swordsmen, true swordsmen in the world, and Zoro is that dedicated to his craft. This isn't just some rando walking customer. This is a true swordsman, and the live action is able to capture that so perfectly. Hell, I also personally believe that the absence of his wife made the scene even more poignant for me because in that moment, throughout the exchange and afterwards, we're able to focus on the severity of what was happening and how, just like with Zoro's fight with Mihawk, well, technically, that wasn't a fight, that was a beatdown. But as I was saying, we're able to see that just as with the clash with Mihawk and Zoro's promise to never be defeated again, this is the second moment in the story when we get to see Zoro's motivation and spirit clearly highlighted. And yes, I really did enjoy how the live action worked with that. No superfluous addition, no deviation, just the core of the moment heightened with no humor or laughter to hide behind or take away from the severity of the event. And then, of course, we also get to meet Bartolomeo. Now, did I scream in shock the moment he showed up? Yes, I did. The fact that he tried stealing from Nami and was robbed in turn, and then she proceeded to take him on as a maknae and taught him how to identify his mark and rob them blind, which in turn led to him meeting Luffy Senpai for the first time. Chef's kiss. Brilliant work. No notes. Like I stated, at the start of this video, whilst I was pretty meh about season one, cheering on the things that they were able to stick to from the anime and manga, and being baffled at some of the choices made with changes to the story, having Bartolomeo make his appearance early in season two actually worked for me and delighted me. For the manga readers and anime watchers, we didn't get to see Bartolomeo until we got to Dressrosa. And of course, we all remember him telling Luffy Senpai about when he first saw him at Loketown. Of course, in the anime slash manga, all he did was observe Buggy's attempted execution of Luffy, which was foiled by the lightning strike. And whilst for those who've watched some of my One Piece videos, you all would know how big a fan I am of Oda's writing. I do believe that the change made to season two with regards their meeting made even more sense within the story. With the anime manga, there was a distance fueled by hero worship, which ultimately, whilst we all enjoyed Bartolomeo fanboying over Luffy Senpai and Nami Senpai and Zoro and Usopp Senpai and Sanji Senpai, there was still this feeling of him not really knowing them so well and merely having his obsession with them being fueled by an act of, to him at the time, God, plus Luffy's utter disregard for his own impending death. But now with the live action, it feels like we got to have a bit more coloring of the pages, a little bit to fill in the gaps, which gives further depth to their interactions. So now Bartholomew isn't just in awe of Nami because she's a member of Luffy's crew, but because she taught him how to observe, what to look for, how to choose a target, and use his skills to get what he wants. Luffy, on the other hand, we see gets to directly influence Bartholomew by talking about his dreams, what he wants, whilst at the same time, the events that follow get Bartholomew to learn about Luffy's own dreams. And so, as the story then progresses for him to get to see Luffy slowly walk that path, with each island, each bounty, each story affirming Luffy's active choices on his journey to becoming the king of the pirates, it directly affirms Bartolomew's own choices. And for live action viewers, they'll be able to get it. We still get the comedy, but we also get the heart. And it is directly tied to a character that those who only know of One Piece through the live action get to appreciate. But those of us who know what will happen in the new world get to really enjoy things. It's the best of both worlds, really. And honestly, the same goes for Smoke and Tashigi. Now, am I still very much upset about the live action's decision to bring in Garp early? Yes, I have already made all my complaints about that in season one. I still believe that they could have had him chase Luffy if they wanted to bring him in early, but they should have maintained the mystery of him being Luffy's grandfather until Water 7, as was done in the manga and anime. But you know what? There's no need to flog a dead horse. What's happened has happened, and nothing is going to change in that regard. So I'm just going to let that be. What I will say, however, is that the changes with Smoker and Tashigi, simply brilliant. Having Tashigi meet Robin, sorry, Miss All Sunday, and that entire conversation slash interaction is chef's kiss. Perfection, great writing, because it's such a masterwork of having these two women seemingly talking about something that on the surface level is Robin identifying that Tashigi feels crowded, feels caged, believes that she's sacrificing her dreams in order to follow her superior officer's whims and desires and commands. And we can tell that Tashigi is frustrated by this, and Robin is trying to manipulate her through this. Or is she? Now, if you're someone who's only seen the live action, you'll be able to see clearly how the story is trying to establish Tashigi's own motivations and the impotence that she feels with regards what she isn't able to do due to the rules she has to follow. But for those of us who have read the manga or seen the anime or both, we get to see a little more, a planting of the seeds that we know will grow in later story arcs. Now, spoiler warning for events in the anime and manga, I will put the timestamp in the description bar so you can just skip it. But we know, of course, that the feeling of being bound and caged and isolated is something that Nico Robin is very much familiar with. Her goals has always been tied to the legacy of O'Hara and being able to find and read the poneglyphs. But because she is bound to Crocodile and their seemingly mutual beneficial relationship, which is, to be fair, more beneficial to Crocodile than it is to Robin, but at least she gets to enjoy the protection of Baroque works against the world government and the Marines and the bounty they've placed on her head. We can see in her interaction with Tashigi that she understands what Tashigi is going through. The frustration that comes from having to sacrifice what you want desperately because your own desires are secondary in the face of the man that you serve. If anybody knows what that feels like, that powerlessness, that you can't actually accomplish what you want all on your own, if anyone knows how that feels like exactly, it's Nico Robin in that moment. And so to have that interaction be written into the scene works so well, brilliantly well, in fact. And it's also a great way to ensure that her eventual clash with Robin when they get to Alabasta and Robin proceeds to fight and beat her ass, which, to be fair, was central in getting Tashigi to finally realize that the Marines stand zero chance against Crocodile and the top Baroque Works numbered agents, and so they have to rely on the Straw Hats to save Alabasta. It means that when we get to that scene, Robin's conversation with Tashigi before the beatdown would be further central to Tashigi's realization that she needs to get stronger, something that Smoker affirms for her at the end of the arc before they leave Alabasta. Now, confession time, I am not the biggest Tashigi fan. I think that her writing, which basically boils down to looks like Kuina, is a big sword nerd and keeps chasing after Zoro with the belief that she can beat him, unaware that their power difference is like from night to day or the fucking ass sky to sub-layer earth. Like there's such a big gap that every time she's shown up in the anime or manga to confront Zoro, I'm always face palming because like girl, take a fucking hint. And yet, the change, slight though it may be, which expands on her character, going beyond just wanting to collect swords to needing to prove to herself that she is powerful and capable and should not be looked down on or bogged down by orders from above that would see and treat her as less, is something that I really appreciate. It's so close to the characterization of her that we get in Punk Hazard that I actually do like the change that they ensure that we got with her in Logtown and in the Marine Outpost. So by the time we get to Punk Hazard, we can see how far she's come. It's great. Plus, the bits about her battle with Mr. 11, brilliant work as well. I know in the anime, the entire fight sequence was glossed over and we didn't get to see it. But I enjoyed Tashigi being able to get that win. She really doesn't get as much wins in the manga anime. So seeing her skills displayed on screen, whilst we are aware that she still cannot hold a candle to Zoro or even touch the edges of Mihawk's garments, at least she's a bit decent with the blade. But most importantly, it's a great way to further emphasize how truly fearsome Baroque Works is. Just because the Straw Hats keep kicking their asses all willy-nilly doesn't mean that they aren't an elite assassination network who are quite good at leaving blood and destruction in their wake. We don't really get to see this as much in the anime slash manga until we get to Alabasta, but having the live action emphasize this at the very start with Mr. Five, Miss Valentine, and Nico Robin, aka Miss All Sunday, and afterwards with Miss Thursday and Mr. 11 at the Marines listening outpost, we get to see another change that I think works well with the story in order to establish early on the stakes that is Baruch's work. It's the little things like this that I appreciate. Same with the bit with Sanji, because prior to him talking, I thought that the show was just going to continue with the fact that Sanji is a gentleman and does care for the women in his crew, first of which is Nami. And so, of course, is the one who stays by her side, waiting for her to gain consciousness after her infection, hoping to feed her during her lucid moments in between. And that would have still worked if they had gone in that route. But God, to have them bring in his mother, I mean, we didn't get the part of Sanji's backstory fully in the anime slash manga until Oak Island. So having it come to bear at this point is fantastic work and heartfelt and heartwarming because it just adds so much to his characterization whilst planting seeds for future character development. I doubt if we're ever going to get to Oak Island with the live action, and so to have them bring in this moment is just such a great way to flesh out these characters. Sanji's care for Nami in her illness is because he's a mama's boy who cared for her while she was sick, and so acts of service for him have always been Sanji's love language. Is the way in which he shows up up for those he loves and cares for. The reason why he loves to cook is because that's how he gets to share that love with others, tied back to his origins from when he was a little boy. It's a deviation from how things played out when Nami was ill in the anime slash manga, but it's a deviation that is done by bringing in bits of character development and insight that Oda walks in and reveals much later in his story. And whilst I have seen some people complain about this, particularly on Twitter, because all of this was meant to be revealed later in time, I think bringing it in early still works because it's a reveal, yes, but it's just such a small snippet of Sanji's backstory that the larger part is still left unknown. And the little bit that we were given just helps to flesh out his characterization, making him so much more. We get to directly affirm early on in the Straw Hats journey that all of them, Sanji inclusive, have all known personal loss. This, mind you, cannot be compared to the reveal of Carp being Luffy's grandfather in season one. I have said it before and I'll say it again. That reveal, that early in the game, absolutely unnecessary. I just feel the need to repeat that. Now, still speaking of Sanji though, I also really liked how Zeph's care and pride in Sanji is further reinforced in Loketown, with it being mentioned that is put one of Sanji's dishes on the menu and that Sanji gets to be aware of it. It's a nice emphasized touch that brings comfort to me because Sanji and Zeph's relationship never fails to make me blindingly happy and giddy. And finally, there's the little changes we got with Robin. One, the obvious being the fact that the live action does actually go out of its way to show her killing people. Now, it's something that non One Piece fans tend to criticize Oda for, the fact that it doesn't really give high stakes in his stories and it doesn't have his characters kill other people. Now, I already have a video on my channel addressing why death isn't a state of permanence in the One Piece universe. You can check out that video in my One Piece playlist. But I do think that the live action being clear cut about Robin's ruthlessness does help with her characterization. Like, sure, in the manga and anime, she tends to tease when she says her specialization with Baroque works is assassination with a wink. And I mean, if even, brief spoiler alert, Spandam is still left alive after everything that happened, I can see why some fans are very upset about Robin killing in the live action. And you know what? Everyone is entitled to their opinion, like I always say. What I would like to add, though, is that for Robin to be able to rise within the ranks of Baroque Works, a criminal organization with a specialty in destabilizing countries and performing covert and overt assassinations, it goes beyond reason to assume that she's probably had to carry out a couple of said assassinations in order to get to where she is. Those of us who've watched the anime and read the manga are very much aware of what Robin has been through, why she's on the run, and the logical reason why she would seek refuge in an organization like Baroque Works. So, doesn't it make sense that she would do whatever it takes to survive and position herself in a place where she gets to be considered an equal to someone like Crocodile? It's, after all, that equal status that meant that she's able to also use the organization and Crocodile's plan to achieve her own aims. Does it not also work with the fact that it would then make it a more sensible outcome for her to give up said assassination ways after she, brief spoiler warning, leaves Baroque Works and becomes a member of the Straw Hats? Like, it makes sense from a storytelling perspective because it's yet another way for us to be able to distinguish Robin as Miss All Sunday and Robin as Nico Robin, the archaeologist and the teller and enjoyer of the most morbid of jokes. It, of course, also lends gravitas for me with regards Black Maria's defeat in Wano. There's just something utterly ruthless and cold with how Robin breaks her in Wano that is delicious and bloodthirsty to me. Did I scream? That's my assassin the first time I read that panel? Yes. Yes, I did. Grand Jacuzzi clutch indeed. Robin can clutch me any damn day. But the thing that really stuck with me with regards the change in the live action was Crocodile mentioning Robin's name at the end of the season. I personally thought it was such an interesting and effective change because for those couple of seconds at the end, we're able to get such a brief glimpse into Robin as a person. Her flinch and anger at Crocodile calling her by her name is meant to get viewers who are only watching the live action to suspect that there is so much more going underneath than is already immediately obvious. There's so much of the story that they do not know. As viewers, we are meant to ask ourselves why the extreme reaction, why this desire to distance herself from her own name, or is the reaction tied to the person who is using her name and calling her Nico Robin? Now, for those of us who've read the manga or seen the anime, we are very much aware of why Robin is reacting the way she is, the history that she's trying to keep hidden and forgotten, and why she's putting in so much effort into her own goals and dreams. And it's all those little touches, those little nods, the bits that wink at future events that have me so satisfied with how this season was written. I will forever be team season 2 of the One Piece live action, having found its own footing and decided on how exactly it wants to tell its own story. And it's brilliant work all around. I cannot wait for us to get to season 3 and Alabasta. Of course, I also just wonder just how far the live action intends to go. I've seen some people mention that we might get to the end of Marineford, and honestly, I will always appreciate every version of One Piece that we get to see. So, a part of me, a delusional part of me, hopes we get to Dressrosa for obvious reasons. I mean, if season 3 is Alabasta, season 4 will most likely be Skypiea, season 5 will be Water 7 and Ennis Lobby, season 6 probably Thriller Bark and Samudi. Honestly, it would be fantastic and absolutely gut wrenching if they end it after, brief spoiler warning, Kuma sends all the Straw Hats flying. Like, just imagine those who've not read the manga or seen the anime reacting to that. Do you think they would think that all the Straw Hats are dead? Would they wonder where they all went? Imagine that is where they end the season. Fucking genius work right there. Then, of course, season 7 can be Impel Down and Marineford. Season 8 can be Returned to Sabodi, Fishman Island, and maybe Punk Hazard. And then season 9 can be Dressrosa. If Netflix actually renews the show to that point and we still get to have 2 years in between seasons, remember the writer's strike is why we got 3 years in between season 1 and season 2. Plus, they've already started production for season 3 since November last year. So we're on good track, making good time. But yeah, that would put us at 14 years to get to Dressrosa. Any more seasons with the OG crew and Luffy would be looking like a middle-aged man by the time we get to Wano. But you know what? I love Inaki, so I just want Netflix to continue to renew the live actions for as many seasons as they can. I'm just saying. But of course, these are just my thoughts. I would, as always, love to hear yours. Whether or not you agree with me, please share them in the comments. Like this video, however, if you've watched this far and haven't done so yet, but enjoyed anything of what I had to say, share it so others can find my channel as well. Or you can check out my gaming or ASMR channels if they sound like something you might be interested in. I have them both linked in the description bar. I will see you tomorrow with a new video. Until then, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.